Welcome to Terror in Tandem, a podcast about finding entertainment in the macabre, hosted by the knowledgeable and lovable Laura and Richard Mathiasen. Each episode we discuss the horror genre, from books to film to TV and beyond. Sometimes even from the beyond. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram at Terror in Tandem. You'll always find our latest episode on our website, terrorintandem.com.
.com.
.gov. .biz. .ai.
.org.
Hello.
Hi.
.co.uk.
Yeah. .co.
.uk.
.ca.
That's the
forget.
yes.
EDU.
So,
Yes, sir.
welcome everyone. We're doing something a little different today.
We're starting a new series, everyone. A new series.
Welcome.
The new series is going to be called
Does it still hold up?
Does It?
Does it?
Indeed.
Where what co-host and I are doing is
Co-host and co-host.
taking a movie, or maybe in the future something else that we remember really, really loving back in the day. But the rule is you can't have seen it within like the last 15 years or so.
Right.
It has to have been a while.
And it also can't be like in the top 25 of all
Yeah,
time
we're
horror
not going to
movies.
be watching like The Exorcist to see if it's still good. It is, and it always will be. But
For example, I recently reread The Talisman.
you did?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it does still hold up.
No surprise there. No surprise there. Speaking of
Yeah. Good segue.
writers who write things, do you want to just jump right into our
Well,
thing?
let's tell. So, yeah, we're going to be each choosing a movie. Most likely, it'll be a movie. Maybe it'll be a book on occasion.
Maybe.
If we plan ahead enough.
Hmm.
And I'm pointing at you.
Something I'm known for.
Where we each pick some significant horror film that we loved when we were younger.
Yeah, made a big impression.
And maybe we're not sure if it holds up. And
Is
we
it-
want to test it out.
Is it the memory of the happy time when we saw it that it's clouding our judgment? Is it
Was
that
it
we
good for
saw
the
it?
time
Yeah,
when we
did we
saw it?
when we saw it? Were we at a different time in our lives, and maybe it hit those buttons, but now we are feeling differently? Or is it just as much of a banger as it always was and always will be?
Do we each get a vote on whether or not it holds up?
Absolutely,
or
we
is it really
do.
just the person who brought it to the table? Because it's really your question, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know what votes would count towards. I would say we can each give our opinion on it.
yeah, like, I mean, how will I know if it still holds up for me if it still holds up for you? Because you're the one that picked it.
Well said. So let's get into our first one, which is yours, which go.
So I chose this film for a number of reasons. I haven't seen it in some time. It fit the brief is one of the main reasons.
She understood the assignment, folks.
And it's been a while. And it's timely also. It feels timely of a film to watch. And I really did want to test to see if my feelings about the film and how much I liked it do hold up. So I chose 1983's film, The Dead Zone, based on a novel by Stephen King. Surprise, surprise. And it's directed by David Cronenberg, which is a surprise.
A little
that I would
bit.
choose.
A little bit.
It's starring Christopher Walken, Brooke Adams from Body Snatchers. We talked a lot about her.
From
And
so many things.
Tom Skerritt, everyone,
Yeah.
from Top Gun fame.
And picket fences.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. And Dino De Laurentiis, Giada's grandpappy,
Oh, well, yeah, super producer.
and Deborah Hill were producers. for
Yeah,
this film.
John Carpenter's producer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And wife. at one point.
Were they married?
Yes.
They were. Yeah. So
He married a lot of people.
well, I think like a lot of male directors, he's probably really, really easy to get along with and live with. So this movie, when you picked it, I was really, really excited because I've seen it a few times, but it's been a while for me as well.
Yeah, it's been decades for me, for sure. So I'll give you just a quick synopsis. So Johnny Smith, yes, it's Johnny Smith, John Smith. But
Johnny.
What's really interesting is in the book, they definitely address Johnny Smith of it all.
And it's purposeful. I mean, he's supposed to be sort of like anyone.
Yeah, and David Cronenberg hated it, but then just later caved. Anyway, Johnny Smith is a school teacher. He's in love with a girl, and his future is ahead of him. He gets into a car accident and falls into a coma for 5 years. And when he wakes up, his job, his girl, and his like known reality is gone. But he does have a gift, and that
two terrible parents. Oh, sorry.
That gift is that he can see the future by touching someone.
Gift ?
And that gift seems to be his undoing. So this film came out in 1983. So you guys can do the math, but it's over 40 years old. So we're going to spoil this whole film. So if you have never seen it and are interested in watching it, pause here. And welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the film. So, what's interesting is the meaning of the term "the dead zone" was originally explained by Stephen King in the novel, and it was based on the theory that most people only use 10% of their brains, and the other 90% is thought of as the dead zone. And this is an old theory that was believed by science in 1978 when Stephen King published the book, but it's since been debunked that we actually, in fact, use 100% of our brain.
Yes. If you stop and think about it, it's one of those scientific theories that you just sort of like accept, but it makes about as much sense as like peeing in a public pool will make dye go off. Like you use 10% of your brain, huh? 10%. Like
and
which
I think
part?
It's more about the word use.
I know.
Versus understand.
Yeah. It's very, very 1950s science.
In the film, the dead zone's referred to as Johnny's visions and something that the doctor that he works with, played by Herbert Lom.
Yes. The great Herbert Lom.
Yeah.
I mean, from like everything.
Everything. He interprets it as a suggestion that fate isn't sealed and can be changed.
By the way, quick one, the rare Herbert Lom where he's not a villain.
Yeah.
He's like a genuinely good person in this movie.
Some interesting facts about the movie before we get into it is David Cronenberg fired a .357 Magnum off camera loaded with blanks in order to make Christopher Walken's flinches be involuntary. And this was Christopher Walken's idea. So whenever he
so
flinches,
much.
it's
Gonna need you to
actually
shoot this
because
gun.
there's a gun being shot.
Ah, scary. It's awful, but do it again.
And the novel, written in 1978, as I mentioned, was the first one of Stephen King's novel to reach #1 bestseller list. And it was loosely based on a man named Peter Hurkos. And he was a Dutchman who claimed he manifested ESP after recovering from a head injury from falling off a ladder. He was used by the U.S. government and police to find the Boston Strangler and clues to the Manson family murders. And King has said that this is one of the best depictions of his work on film.
Neat.
So let's talk about our feelings.
You first. It's yours.
So one thing that stood out for me upon this rewatch was how and I do remember reading the book and feeling this way and watching the original movie, but I've lived a life, a lot of life since then. So how incredibly sad this is, how tragic. And there really are no winners in this movie at all. Nobody wins. Nobody comes out on top. It's very, very sad. And even trying to vilify any of the characters except for Martin Sheen. We did not mention Martin Sheen's in this movie, but he is.
Greg Stilson.
But Brooke Adams' character, even vilifying her actions, You can't.
Oh, I
They
don't.
were so young.
So I don't have any problem with Brooke Adams's moving on. I mean, he's in a coma. She's young. She gets married. What I have a problem with is that she seems to go from nice, mild-mannered teacher to like a Republican campaign operative for the worst person you've ever met before Donald Trump became a thing.
She just fell under this charms of his.
It was just a little hard for me to like, you know, feel sympathy for her character when she's like shilling for the fucking, you know, like embodiment of Thatcherism. Like it was like, okay, who is this person?
So throughout the movie, you see Christopher Walken kind of start to fall apart a little bit emotionally because everything he ever wanted is different. His mom dies because she is a pearl clutching moment because he's basically like possessed by the devil because he can tell the future now.
She's a hardcore
Very
Christian,
religious.
like super duper Christian, the kind that, you know, dies because she sees something that she doesn't like on TV.
And he helps the police reluctantly. He starts to use his gift. He helps the police find a serial killer, which guess what, everyone? The cop did it.
It's a copper.
But those scenes, the flashback scenes, or like flashback and flash forward, I guess.
Yeah, the visions.
The visions that he has are really well done. And at the core of this movie is the emotional capacity for people to carry on, even in spite of their loneliness. I mean, Christopher Walken is basically removes himself from public because he can't shake people's hands. It's so painful, and actually to his physical detriment. I think these visions, the doctor says, they're kind of slowly killing him.
Yeah, every time he has. So you mentioned the visions. The way Cronenberg frames these is he's there in the event. So, you know, the first one he experiences, it's a little girl in a house on fire. So he's in the vision, the way it's shot, he's in the house, in the bed, and, you know, watching this girl scream and the fire's getting closer to her, and then he catches fire. So like he feels it, he's there, he feels the fear.
And the nurse whose daughter it is like mopping his brow, but he's boiling hot because he's in this fire. And
Herbert Lom, the doctor, says to him, you know, every time you use this, it takes more from you.
Yeah.
So,
and
sorry.
People don't necessarily want to hear when they're going to die or that there's something wrong.
That's
Some
the
people
tragedy.
Don't believe him.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, he gets used up. I mean, he gets inundated with mail from people demanding his services. He can't leave the house. He gets hounded. People are after him. The idea is like he can see these visions, so we own him. He has to tell me where my thing is or this. And the anger that people have for him when he's not able to help everyone, it's really sad. Like he gets picked clean. Like,
and it's a terrible cost for everybody. So we cut to he takes on like a tutoring job and he helps out this rich guy because he meets his son who needs him, and he finds out that his son is going to drown in like going ice hockeying.
Yeah, I mean, you when you were mentioning the cast, you forgot the guy who plays his father, Anthony Zerbe.
Yeah,
Zerbe. I mean, he's the eyebrow man.
Perfect.
He's in every movie he was ever in, and he's in like a billion movie. He plays the asshole, like rich guy. Always plays the asshole rich guy.
But like to his own detriment, Christopher Walken is like, the ice is gonna break, you know, like that's his whole thing. And the father just is like, fine, we won't do it, lies to him. And then the son believes him so much because of their relationship that he doesn't go. The ice breaks and 2 other kids die. And the father is like catatonic. He can't even function because he let this happen.
Well,
so like nobody wins.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Now this kid is even further from having any connection. He made a connection with Johnny as a tutor, and he tries to make his dad happy, and now all of that is gone. Like all lives get destroyed in this film.
I think many times Stephen King has come across the same question. Something that fascinates him is, What would we do if Jesus Christ came back right now in our society? And he addresses this over and over again. He does it in The Dead Zone. He does it in The Green Mile. He does it in Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. He, to an extent, does it in 11/22/63, at least having the power of God. Like, how would society react to a savior, to somebody with knowledge to help? And the answer he keeps coming to is we would eat
wins.
them alive. We would destroy them. We would tear them to pieces.
Or
just the same way we did with the first Jesus.
You're not believed, or you're used up. And so then we kind of cut to what Richard said, which is his ex. He meets his ex's new husband, and
who's a real dick.
They're canvassing for. I don't agree with that. I think
the husband sucks.
I think he was just a regular guy
campaigning for a fascist.
They don't know that, though.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. Greg Stilson is not publicly being a fascist.
If you watch the speech that he gave, that Christopher Walken watched, that is a 100% like screaming fascist diatribe about they're coming to get you and this and that.
I mean, they're all
very
being
obviously
captivated by his charms.
Very like unsubtle point that he was Mussolini.
Sure, but the point really is that Christopher Walken needed the visions in order to tell that he was evil.
He needed the vision.
Especially in the book.
Johnny
Smith needed to.
He needed the visions in order to tell he was going to end the world in nuclear fire, but he didn't need the visions to tell that he was a demagogue.
Well, when he does meet Greg Stilson on the campaign trail, he accidentally shakes his hand. He's there looking for his ex, I think probably to be like, I can't live this life without you. Like, I think that's kind of what he's looking for. We never find out. And then he sees in a really amazing flash forward scene with Martin Sheen's character, Greg Stilson, for now in this moment campaigning for state senator. He is now the president of the United States, about to press the nuclear button.
And the things he's saying in this vision of the future are, I mean, this was 1983, but George W.
1978, really. I mean,
True.
I know it's Cronenberg's interpretation.
True, but we're not talking about the book. We're talking about the movie.
Yeah.
Does the movie still hold up? So this is 1983. The words Greg Stilson uses in these scenes, some of them are, if you close your eyes, it's George W. Bush talking about we are embarking on a grand crusade in Iraq, using this religious, militaristic language to justify mass slaughter, war, and genocide. It's 100%. It's very strange to watch this movie because, honestly, Greg Stilson's language when he's ordering the death of the world is less charged than the language we've been hearing all year from certain politicians on the campaign trail.
And the interesting moment is, he basically threatens his VP to put his code in. He puts the code in, presses the button, no remorse. And then he goes to, like, I think he's at Camp David.
Yeah,
I think
he's at Camp David.
He opens the patio door and then lets all of his cabinet members in. And they're like, oh, we came up with a solution. He's like, no, I already solved it.
Yeah, and my favorite part of that whole thing is the fucking limp-dicked old white guy VP who goes, no, I'm not going to do it. And then Martin Sheen yells at him and he goes, may God have mercy on me. And it's like, that's all it took, huh? It's getting yelled at.
None of them will. So,
but my favorite part being every time some hideous fucking asshole does something that they know is wrong, they always go, I hope God will forgive me. It's like, well, you know it's wrong. Don't do it. How about just don't do it?
I mean, in another...
I said God before I did it, so I'm good, right?
Yeah.
It's okay for me?
He's like, I'll cut your hand off and use your handprint myself. And he would have. I
understand. Now, this isn't a flex. If you tell me to kill the world,
I'm not justifying
and
that.
then you threaten to torture me, it doesn't matter. Like, yes, I'm upset about the torture, but I will never push the button that kills 8 billion people.
So we have this scene, and it makes Christopher Walken, Johnny Smith's character, Johnny Smith, singularly obsessed with killing Greg Stilson. He can't leave him, to carry out his fate.
Now
So-
that he knows what he knows.
yeah. So that's essentially the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie. This vision and what he does about it. And it ends terribly and tragically for everybody. And I guess good for the masses.
I mean, you're spoiling the movie, so just what happens?
So he attempts to assassinate Greg Stilson, who then holds up his ex's baby to protect himself.
Elon Musk style.
And his number 2 goon shoots Johnny and kills him, and he falls off the balcony and dies. But the disgrace, as he's able to see the final vision, the disgrace of him holding a baby to protect his own life, destroys his character.
Yeah, so
destroys his whole character and campaign, and it ends there. And he sees a vision of Martin Sheen.
So
killing
Christopher
himself.
Walken camps out in like a church where he's going to give a speech. He pulls out a rifle, and he's about to shoot him, but Brooke Adams sees him and calls out.
It's
And
just a town hall.
yeah, he gets shot, and he falls. And as he's dying, he manages to touch Greg Stilson again. Now Greg Stilson, grabs Brooke Adams' baby child and holds him up like a human shield, and everyone sees it, and pictures get taken. And as Christopher Walken's dying, he touches Greg Stilson again, and he sees Greg Stilson like disgraced,
Like
alone,
Time
committing suicide.
magazine,
Yeah.
disgraced.
So he saves the world, and as he's dying, Brooke Adams tells him, I still love you. I love you, and it's like really beautiful, but it's really sad because they, like Johnny Smith said, it was never in the cards for us.
Yeah, and it just ends there, and it's really tragic because he did so good. He could have done such good. And you had mentioned something like, oh, holding up a baby to deflect a bullet probably wouldn't get you
Oh yeah,
just like canceled now.
that's the thing is in this movie he's disgraced for holding up a baby as a human shield, and I 100% fucking guarantee you could do that right now, and they would spin it. They would spin it in a way like the baby voted for Hillary Clinton or something. I don't know.
So after all that, what is my ultimate conclusion? Do I think it still holds up? Absolutely. While I was watching this, within the first 10 minutes, how poignant it was and how beautiful it was, and just how it's shot and acted, and the story as it's playing out, yes, it holds up. It's a really high quality movie. Like I said, the script is great. It's well acted. There's just enough kind of like violence in it to classify it as like a Cronenberg horror, especially what the accused and serial killing cop does to himself. It's a very Cronenberg moment.
Really interesting way to go out.
Yes. So in a cinematic sense, yeah, it doesn't matter that it's 40 years old. It doesn't feel that old. You don't suffer from no cell phones. You don't suffer from, old technology being a problem or an eyesore. It all just really works together to unfold the story of Johnny. One thing that is, I think, true today that would be true back in 83 is you wouldn't believe somebody who had psychic visions. I mean, that would hold your hand. I mean, some people believe in psychics, but if there was somebody like this solving crimes out there, it would still not be believed. So in that sense, we haven't made much of a progress. And also the tragedy of the outcome for everybody. It still hit me the same way. Even if it's a little bit of old emotion that I'm conjuring up because I love this movie when I saw it, I love the book, and I'm still feeling that, it still conjures that all up. What about you from an independent non-chooser of this film?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenal movie. It's a classic. It's one of Stephen King's sadder and more contemplative books. But it works so well because I think it plays against type for a lot of the people involved. Meaning, you know, for Cronenberg, it's a very subdued film. There's no body horror. It's one of his more restrained movies. Also, Walken's performance is one of his more restrained performances. Back earlier in his career, when he was doing stuff like The Deer Hunter and whatnot, you know, he wasn't as much of a like sort of character that he is now. But it's also an understated performance by Christopher Walken, and I think all of that together just really makes this very poignant, beautiful, and sad film. But for me, what really holds up the most, God damn it! I mean, you feel like you could be watching it. It never loses its timelessness, and that, unfortunately, for me, is very sad. You know, the same violent, conservative demagoguery that you see in politicians. It's word for word the same speeches. The credulity of people falling for stuff like that. How we treat people who maybe have a benefit to us. How we use up every good thing in life. Like Stephen King's never been. He's always been a pretty harsh mirror for humanity, but never an unfair one. And like all Stephen King works that points a harsh light on us, I think he's pretty even-handed, but he doesn't pull his punches. Like,
yeah, and what it means for something to hold up is, does it transcend space and time? Could this movie have come out this weekend? Whether it's taking place in 1983 and this film comes out and it's like, oh, this took place in 1983. Does it still hold up as an experience where you can enjoy knowing everything you know about the world and your own lived experience and cinematic experience? Yes, it absolutely does. It's a high quality movie.
Yeah, I mean, in the term of holding up, it's like, why do we still read Shakespeare? The language has changed, the setting has changed, but the human behavior has not.
Right.
These are timeless.
Yeah.
Timeless examinations. And I just mean beyond that, I found what was a little depressing was even the details of the setting seem to have changed very little in 40 something years.
Correct.
Like we're still doing the same exact shit in the same way. So
I guess like now watching it and reflecting back, like Johnny Smith actually didn't save the world because we never learned our lesson.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, he saved us from Martin Sheen firing the nukes.
The other thing too is love. It like love and loss. Those are enduring themes, and I think I have to say, like, some of my favorite Stephen King works really are love and loss.
I want to give a special
thematics.
mention to his parents for being
of course you do.
The worst. So his parents are two old fuddy-duddies.
His dad's just like
His dad is just a schmoop who just schmoops his way through life, basically having like no opinion or like even noticing anything.
Fight in him.
Just
There's
like
no fight at all.
Oh, I guess I'll do this. I guess I'll do that. And then when his wife dies, he's just like, the wife is dead. And his mom just seems to exist to go through phases of like orgiastic religious euphoria and then, you know, say a bunch of weird shit and like kiss her son in a very aggressive way, you know, like a religious person. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Like every time they were there, it was just like, thanks, Mom and Dad.
It was just that typical disconnected, don't really even know
Oh,
you.
yeah. They didn't know shit about their son. They did not want to. But yes, every word she said was like, and God's good grace. It's like, even as he's waking up from a 5-year coma
and the doctor's
and finding
like,
out that everything.
We talked about this, ma'am.
Yeah. And finding out that everything in his life is blown up. That her first words are like, the Christ has commanded you.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus, man, fuck you.
So Stephen King loves to like call out
creepy religious
cops.
Moms.
He loves to call out creepy religious moms. I mean, in his earlier works, all those like Cujo and Carrie and like everything that was successive, they all have references inside of them.
Speaking of Cujo, it's nice to see Sheriff George Bannerman alive.
Yeah.
He is a recurring character in the Kingiverse who meets his end in the jaws of Cujo.
Yeah. I mean, So I think it holds up for all the reasons I mentioned, but also you can see the emergence of Cronenbergness.
Yeah.
You know, like you can see it.
He's a young director, but he'd made about 5 movies at this point.
Yeah, but the body horror of it.
Yeah. It's cool to see young Christopher Walken, like all kind of handsome.
Yeah, he could get it in that movie. Once his hair was like, you know, post-coma hair.
Yeah.
Was better than pre-coma hair.
Right. Yeah, his haircut was weird.
It was like, how are we going to make the passage of time happen?
Yeah.
We are going to give Christopher Walken a Caesar-style haircut, and then after he gets out of the coma, and blow his hair back.
Also,
to
it's
the Christopher Walken.
It's always
style.
really funny when when people, especially it's happened much more when he was younger, when they would try to make Christopher Walken seem like a normal guy. Like he's just a small town English teacher for high school kids. It's like, no, he's Christopher Walken. So he's in there reading The Raven. He's like, at my window tapping, always tap, never more. And you're like. Yeah. Jesus Christ. It's still just because you give him a bad haircut and put some glasses on him, it's like that. No, that's very much Christopher Walken.
Of the minor criticisms I would have of, like, obviously this film is somewhat dated, but the other piece is there's some continuity issues. Christopher Walken did a really good job of his injury, but then when he was like out to kill Greg Stilson, that limp and his cane, I don't need it.
Oh, they do that all the time in movies. Someone gets shot and then like 5 minutes later they're punching people with that same arm.
Yeah. And also just the difference, big difference between the book and the film is that Greg Stilson doesn't really show up until over an hour into the film, but in the book he is a very, very prominent character.
They try to do that in the movie by showing the billboard that they're constructing throughout so he's like a presence. But Martin Sheen doesn't make an appearance at all until over an hour into the movie. It's great. I'm so happy you picked it because watching it again was a real joy.
And so I would call this like an underrated film, and it does still hold up.
100%.
Let's take a break.
Let's do it. Well, tonight hasn't exactly worked out the way you thought, huh? A beautiful cabin in the woods, a group of your horniest college friends, and a cadre of mass throw killers picking you off one by one. Oops, that last part wasn't supposed to happen, was it? Well, it did, and now all your friends are dead, displayed just for you in increasingly ironic ways. Now it's down to just the killers and you, and girl, your nerves are as razor thin as those razors they keep throwing at you. Why not reach for a can of Final Girl CBD Seltzer? Every can of FG CBD contains just enough CBD to dull the pain of your injuries, numb the rage at being gaslit by all of your male friends who died anyway, and give you that last little boost you need to either make your escape or surrender fully to your animal instincts and butcher your pursuers with a ferocity completely undeserved by the last 90 minutes of characterization. For a little extra push, try one of our Final Girl CBD seltzers with meth. FG CBD SWM. Every can has enough meth to drive you to berserker levels of strength and murder. I mean self-defense. Final Girl CBD Seltzer. Plan for the worst, but always drink the best. This is a fake ad for a fake product on a horror-themed podcast. We do not condone nor endorse the consumption of fictitious drinks to survive your night in hell.
And we're back with Richard's pick.
With my pick. Back with my pick. Me.
Wonder if this one's going to hold up for
Dick's
you.
Picks. Welcome to another episode of Dick Picks.
Oh, boy. No, thank you.
Richard Picks. Hi. Mr. Picks here.
Please don't call Richard Dick.
Dick Picks. So I went solely on vibes for this one.
Tricky Dick's Dick Picks.
So I went on nostalgia vibes for this one. I saw this movie in the theater when it came out. I know I've seen it since, but it's definitely been a very, very long time. And I remember when I saw it, I really, really liked this movie. But I had a feeling before I chose it that maybe some of that might have been time and place because I was 17 years old when this movie came out. So,
and I'm a virgin to it.
we are talking about, I tried to be gentle. We are talking about 1997's Event Horizon, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. Now, we specify that because this is most certainly not Paul Thomas Anderson. No. Do not get Paul W.S. Anderson movies mixed up with P.T. Anderson movies. Those are real fucking different.
Yeah.
Imagine like you think you're going to watch Resident Evil 9 and it's Boogie Nights.
It's like on The Office when somebody rented 28 Days Later thinking it was the Sandra Bullock.
Oh, yeah,
movie.
yeah, exactly. That's really so. Now, Event Horizon was only, I believe, the second movie that Paul Anderson did. Future Mr. Milla Jovovich. He had previously.
Mr. They're married?
Indeed, they are. After Milla Jovovich was briefly married to the super cool around ladies and not at all creepy Luc Besson. She married Paul Anderson in way back in 2009.
Paul W.S. Anderson.
And she is his muse. They have done many, many movies together.
But not this one.
No, Milla Jovovich is not in this one. So no shade on her. She's amazing. Multi-pass. Anyway, so Event Horizon has a real fucking stacked cast. We've got Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Neill, Sean Pertwee, Jason Isaacs. We've got Jolie Richardson and Kathleen Quinlan. I mean, it's like character actors coming out the fucking wazoo.
Love to see Kathleen Quinlan.
Always love to see her. So this movie is... Okay, the long and short of it is, it's the near future. It's 2047.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So now the space people they sent out a ship called the Event Horizon that was experimenting with faster than light travel, and on its maiden voyage, it went and disappeared. Then 7 years later, they got a mysterious signal. Boop boop boop. So they send out this crew. That doesn't want to be there.
Of everybody that Richard mentioned, except Sam Neill's not part of the crew.
Sam Neill is he's the egghead that they stuck with the crew, and they let him know that.
He's actually the creator of the Event Horizon.
He created the Event Horizon, and while they're out in space, he says, so yeah, I know that you were told the Event Horizon blew up, but it disappeared. And he tells them all about the faster than light, the gravity drive, which opens up it folds space and time, kind of like, actually in this, when he's explaining it, he does the whole poking a hole in a piece of paper and then folding it together, just like anyone who's seen Interstellar. Same device to explain that. So, it makes wormholes, and they get on the ship, and no one's there except there's a body, and there's a bunch of chunky gore everywhere, and there's a log. And once they decode the log, the ship's log, it's terrible. Oh, God, everyone is screaming and dying.
It's in Latin, and they first misinterpret what the log says.
Yeah, there's a guy yelling something in Latin, and it's been described as by the director as a blood orgy, because that's what it is. Now, all the scene of like them fucking and killing each other. So the blood orgy scene, I'm just real quick aside.
We're not talking about a Cronenberg movie.
They had to cut a lot out of that. Anderson hired porn stars and real life amputees to film that scene. So they got real juicy with it.
Literal blood orgy.
Yep.
Huh.
So anyway, they go on the Event Horizon, and then
checking for signs of life. Yeah,
their ship blows up. The gravity drive comes to life. It sucks in one of their crew. He comes back all weird. Long story short, when this thing creates a wormhole, it enters a different dimension, which is essentially hell. It's a dimension of chaos and evil. And for any fans of Warhammer 40K, you will definitely recognize that because it's 100% the Immaterium. And the screenwriter has since gone on to say, yeah, I pretty much took that from Warhammer. That's actually kind of a running theme watching this movie is I think it would be unfair to say it pays homage. It's really more appropriate to say this movie straight up steals from other movies, like really lifts a lot of stuff from Aliens, and Warhammer.
And Hellraiser.
A ton from Hellraiser.
Especially the visual.
So,
moments.
you know,
And the
everyone
blood orgy.
everyone starts to go crazy. They die.
Start to see visions.
Sam Neill claws his eyes out and becomes a hell priest, and
I want to clarify. They don't start going crazy.
they see visions.
They start the ship starts to make them see visions.
Yeah, like the
of
ship,
things they've done in their past.
the ship,
or family.
since it's been in hell, it's back and it's alive and it's evil and it needs a new crew. So blah blah blah, explosions. There's a big Chekhov's gun kind of thing, and Lawrence Fishburne sacrifices himself to save like a couple members of the crew. Now, this movie, my thoughts on it now are, it's very much a B movie, and it's a lot of fun. I really still like this movie, but I will cop to the fact that my original fascination with it was definitely because I saw it when I was 17 years old. This is a movie that is very much for 17-year-olds. Like, it's dumb. It's flashy and dumb and doesn't make any sense. And if you think about it for longer than half a second, it really falls apart. But credit where it's due. It's super violent. It's hell in space, which is not something we get nearly enough of. I mean, outer space is kind of like hell. And introducing this like very gothic Catholic vision of torture and hell in space on a spaceship really works. The cast is fantastic. I mean, everybody is great. It's just the script is terrible. It's a really weak script, really bad dialogue, very cliched. And like I said, it steals from a lot of things. Like, you know, the whole crew is sort of blue collar and, you know, getting on each other's nerves like Alien. They sit in a briefing room that is straight up from Alien. Like, it's just, even the colors and the table looks the same. You know, my co-host said Hellraiser is, all of the hell imagery is basically Hellraiser. So
can I talk about some interesting like facts?
Please do.
So originally, the original cut was really long.
It was 3 hours long.
And Paramount made Paul W.S. Anderson cut like over 30 minutes, not just because of the length, but because of the violence.
Yeah, apparently they said someone fainted.
More violent.
Yeah, this is the sad part is Anderson, there was a lot of studio meddling. He was forced to cut a lot of gore and a lot of stuff, a lot of backstory for the characters, because you can tell this movie's been hacked to pieces. Sometimes characters do things, you're like, the fuck? And in the original cut, there's actually an explanation for why they're doing some of these things. This is a movie that really screams for a director's cut. Unfortunately, the footage that was cut has been sort of lost. There is talk that some producer has a VHS of it, but no one's heard anything for years on it. And Paul Anderson has made a lot of different comments where he said it'll never happen because the footage doesn't exist. And the last thing he said was like 6 or 7 years ago. He said, there is footage and I can't wait to see it. And then that was that. So he's busy making basically like AI slop now.
Yeah.
Every one of his movies just looks like it's fucking AI slop from Grok.
Another interesting thing that is never talked about or addressed, but that I very much noticed, was the spacesuits and their like labels and flags. So the characters, mostly portrayed by British actors, some wore the European Union Jack. Sam Neill, Sir Sam Neill now, requested that the Union Jack on his lapel be replaced with an Australian flag.
Yes.
The Australian flag be replaced with an Aboriginal looking that he thought it would look like in 2047.
That's very cool.
And Lawrence Fishburne is wearing a pendant with a Jamaican flag on
That was extremely noticeable.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it when I was 17, but the whole time I was watching the movie, it gave this sense of sort of an international crew.
Yeah, like they were all mismatched
which
together.
makes sense. It's if we're in the future and we're in space, please tell me it's not just Americans. I can't even get away from you people leaving the fucking planet. You're everywhere. I want to know that if I travel to Neptune, there's going to be somebody who's not from the fucking Midwest.
Yeah, right. It was like a real crew of just, they were experts in what they were there to do.
The design of the ship is phenomenal. It was based around Gothic cathedrals, specifically Notre Dame. Notre Dame. It is, and again, that's where the Warhammer influence comes in. The writer's a big Warhammer fan. Same. So the gigantic scale of everything being so huge, the Gothic architecture, the Catholic tones, the hell, all of that, the chaos dimension, it's all Warhammer. But God damn, it's awesome. You know, it's done really well. This is a big swing. It's taking them to the Catholic hell from a warp drive in space, and you know, starring really competent veteran character actors. It's just, the script is a little weak, but this movie's elevated by the performances, the design, and the absolute, I gotta give it to Paul Anderson. He made a gnarly movie. Like, he really does go all out with the gore, and it fits. It should be. This, if we're talking about going to a chaos dimension off the, you know, the orbit of Neptune, it should be really scary, and it is. Mission accomplished. It's just a big, loud, dumb late 90s movie, but if you watch it within that frame of expectation, it's a winner. Like, this is a B movie done well.
Well, I told you what the dead zone means. I'll tell you what the event horizon is.
Yeah, that's an actual scientific term.
Yeah, it's the theoretical boundary surrounding a black hole where the gravitational attraction is so strong that not even radiation can escape.
It's essentially the point of no return with a black hole. The event horizon is the peak gravity by which, you know, not even light can escape.
So the end of the film, endish of the film, the event horizon, the physical event horizon, goes into,
it creates one.
The
Yeah,
event
the gravity
horizon.
drive is supposed to create a singularity. It's supposed to create a black hole and then, you know, go through it like a wormhole.
So it's like an Ouroboros moment.
So it's this very much like, you know, sci-fi, but like a teenager's version of sci-fi. Like, yeah, wormholes and big spaceships. But let's talk about, does it still hold up? And one element of it that absolutely does not hold up anymore is the timeline.
Yeah, the timeline is off. This is definitely an immature, like, young directors.
Yes. Now, this
Idea
all
of
takes place in
space horror.
2047. So in the year 2047, there's a moon base. We've colonized Mars.
We're mining on Mars.
Yep. We are out in the orbit of Neptune with a faster than light experimental drive in 2047. Now, folks, the movie begins with a chyron saying, in 2015, the first permanent moon base was established. Well,
Nope.
It seems like we've missed that deadline. You know, in 2047, I gotta say, we're not going to be on Neptune. What we are going to be is burning alive on our own planet while AI Pornhubs of all of our favorite celebrities and, you know, grandma choke our social media feeds. But sure, it's really ambitious and wonderful to think that less than 50, 20 something years in the future. So this was 1997. So Paul Anderson was saying 50 years from now, we're going to be at Neptune in 50 years. Hey, man, I like where your head's at, but probably not.
No. I mean, I don't think so.
Even in 1997, saying we are 50 years away from moon colonies and exploring Neptune, that's a bit of a stretch, buddy.
Here's just a little advice to sci-fi directors out there. I know you all listen to the pod religiously.
And thank you for listening.
Just set it in like a ridiculous future.
An
where
absurd amount of time.
nobody that's alive now could possibly live until.
Yeah.
And you'll be safe.
That was a moment where
It started
even
making me
in
laugh
1990,
right away.
even I'm pretty sure my friends and I in the theater, even in 1997, were like, "What? We're gonna have fucking moon bases in like 20 years? Give me a break." Have you taken a look at these people at the? Sure, we don't have high speed rail, but we're gonna be at Neptune. I mean, it does kind of mimic how our oligarchs think today of like, I'm shooting rockets to Mars, but we still have childhood poverty.
Yeah. And school shootings.
Cool. I think this movie still holds up if you adjust your expectations to this is going to be a fun B ride. I can turn my brain off and watch a dope, gory horror movie in space. I love it. I am not ashamed of my love for it, but I will in no way make the argument that this is a good movie. When it came out, it was a critical and a financial bomb. It cost $60 million to make, which is pretty big.
Well, I know where they put that budget.
Yeah, it only
one
made
of my favorite parts.
Internationally, it only made like $40 million back. Critics hated it, but over the years, it's become a real cult classic. Everyone who has seen this movie, most people speak fondly of it. And as an older guy watching it, having lived a life, I still really, really like this movie because not everything has to be a genre-defining classic. There has to be room for a movie that is dumb and fun, and this is both of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's a space horror, and I think it executes on that.
It steals from The Thing a lot too.
Yeah. Well, I did read that Clive Barker did consult, so that's where the hell.
Interesting. Oh, well, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I picked up on the special effects.
Yeah.
Makeup, special effects.
Oh, top
and
notch.
Sam Neill at the end.
Yeah. Really good prosthetics and makeup.
Very good.
Really good job.
That's where a lot of the budget went.
The CGI, kind of bad. But it was 1997.
Talk to me about that. What do you mean?
You know, like the computer graphics of stuff floating in space was
pretty
bad.
That
but honestly, I've seen stuff of that level in fucking Marvel movies now. It was not as bad as like Henry Cavill's mustache in the Justice League. So I give them a pass. It was 1997.
But some of the ship's mechanics and like the actual heart of the ship.
Great.
That rotating.
Yeah.
I guess it was supposed to be
the set design.
9 circles of hell from Dante.
Yes.
Dante's Inferno. It was called the meat grinder. It's a rotating corridor. That was amazing.
Oh, the whole room with the gravity drive in it is so gothic and weird and pointy.
Yeah.
And like, it looks like, it's
At
very.
one point, Sam Neill has to crawl into this maze of basically internal
like
the green
motherboards
parts of
and
motherboards.
circuit boards and shit.
It's really well done. It looks really cool.
This is by far my favorite Paul Anderson movie. I don't think I don't think Paul W.S. Anderson came anywhere has come close to this since. And I want to remind people that 1997, that was the year like Men in Black came out, Titanic came out. It was a big year for big movies. So this one kind of bombing, it makes sense. Also, I think audiences didn't know what to make of it. It's a space movie, but it's not like a PG-13 adventure movie. It's a hard R, like graphic horror movie, which is not usually what people when they see a spaceship movie, they're like, Star Wars, right? Not so much. I think it's been rightfully reevaluated, and if you just keep it where it is, which is this is a B movie, folks, it's not trying to change the world, it really works. And shout out to Lawrence Fishburne for one of the all-time badass speeches where he's talking about what fire looks like in Zero Gravity.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
So awesome.
Probably the best dialogue of the whole film.
The other thing, you can always tell there's a moment in there where I'm like, oh yeah, Lawrence Fishburne, not to get like too 90s stand-up comic about it, but that's the difference between a white spaceship captain and a black captain. The white captain is like, yeah, let's take this thing back and study it. And the black captain is like, I am launching away from this thing. I'm going to shoot missiles at it until it's fucking dust. And then I'm going to piss on the ashes. Yeah, like we are leaving and we're going to survive.
Well, since this was my first watch and I'm coming into it like as just a new experience, as you mentioned, the script, the dialogue, and some of the like cheesy CGI was problematic. But the action, the tension, the special effects, and the kind of concept of the film and like what we were there for was great. And I think it definitely holds up as a quality sci-fi horror. There's not a lot of sci-fi horror films,
which is a shame. Is a shame. I am so pleased to hear that because I did not know if you were going to like this at all. I thought it's equally believable to me that you will be like, why are you making me watch this cheesy 90 movies for boys?
Yeah, it definitely was that. It definitely was. You could tell the immaturity of the director, but it was enjoyable.
Nice.
And I wouldn't rank it as like, oh my God, this is one of like the scariest.
Neither would I.
Or the best horror I've ever seen. But it definitely holds up. I mean, I didn't think it didn't take me out of time or place. Actually, just the beginning of in 2015.
That was honestly that was like a Riff Tracks moment of hilarity of just 2015 we're gonna have moon bases. Yeah. You know what we were doing in 2015? Watching an idiot go down a golden escalator and tell us never mind.
I did want to tell you this, everybody, that I am pretty well versed in cinema because I can pick up.
Well, aren't you fucking great?
I picked up the Hellraiser of it all, but also Event Horizon's motor, the 3-ring system, was the same concept used in the film Contact. Which
absolutely!
Exactly
you
what
said that immediately.
As soon as I saw it,
yeah, that whole 3 concentric rings that swing and then meet up. That Contact, they did that in X-Men. They've like always doing that.
Contact came out 35 days before this film.
1997 was really quite a year.
Listen, Contact still probably holds up. So
Contact definitely holds up because Carl Sagan and Jodie Foster together, please.
But I enjoyed it.
Excellent. So did I. Well, folks, that was Does It Still Hold Up? Now we're to recap.
For 2, guys.
Yeah, The Dead Zone is not only does it holds up, it's a classic. Anyone should watch it. It's just as good then as it is now, and it probably will be another 40 years. Event Horizon, really fun, awesome. If you go into it thinking it's going to be a genre definer, sorry. If you go into it wanting to have a good time and maybe get a little drunk while you're doing it, totally. This is a blast. Watch this with your friends.
And how about this as a quick little scaled rating for you?
Mm-hmm.
5-finger hold up. Does it still hold up? Out of 5 fingers, Dead Zone, 5 fingers. Still holds up. Event Horizon, 3.5 fingers.
Same. I would also give it 3.5 knuckles. Definitely, because
3.5 fingers.
And I really do want to personally, and for the 7 people that listen to this, reframe our expectations. Folks, not everything has to be the GOAT. Sometimes you just want to watch something that's good.
And we're trying to highlight this is not going to be on the top 25 horror movies, but do they still hold up? And are they still enjoyable? And do they still cause tension and excitement?
Do not watch Event Horizon thinking that you're going to be seeing more good movies from this person. I mean, David Cronenberg went on to do plenty of good stuff. Paul W.S. Anderson, your mileage may vary.
But the
not
people
my
in the film,
favorite.
and did you mention the Isaacs guys?
Yeah, Jason Isaacs. Everybody's in this movie.
Everybody's in this movie.
Sean Pertwee, whose dad was Doctor Who #2.
People you love are in this movie, and you can see some of them. Maybe it's like one of their first.
For you Nip Tuck fans out there, Jolie Richardson's in it. And I forgot to mention Richard T. Jones in, honestly, a pretty great performance.
Yeah.
He's
hilarious.
And
he's the comic relief.
He is the one I remember watching the movie the first time, and this time I rooted for the whole. I was like, I really hope you don't die. You're just great. Yeah, love it. I was so glad it was really fun to watch these with you.
Yeah. So we're going to continue on with this series throughout the course of our podcasting. So if there's anything that you loved and want to know if we think it still holds up, send us a message through Instagram.
I have an update. The phones are lighting up.
Yeah. Our unfortunately, our operator of the phone system is napping.
Well, no one wants to work anymore, is what I've been told.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Terror in Tandem is written, produced, and recorded by Laura and Richard Mathiasen, and edited and mixed by Richard Mathiasen. Our theme was written and performed by Carrie Denver, and all other music was written and performed by David Suspanic. All opinions expressed on this podcast are our own and should be taken as such. Thanks for listening, and please remember to give us a like, a review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. We're standing right behind you.